it's not I think. The I think is the clutter, is the insanity. But if you get rid of that, or if you let that, just let it go, it'll go away eventually. Then what you have is the esthetes, which are the real thoughts. And you have the same thing in Dogen, because he says there's thinking, there's not thinking, and then there's another Japanese word that uses a different privative, which is without thinking. And that's where I think both the Zen people and Nietzsche and probably Pessoa find it best to be. Because then, if I'm down at that wonderful nocturnal beach walk that he takes, he goes down to the beach at night. If I'm down there, and I'm not thinking about yesterday's department meeting and the argument I had with the head of college, I'm just there. If I don't bring the clutter with me, which usually I do, then the thoughts that come from the place, come from where I'm at, come from the circumstance I'm in. And so they come from the rocks, the lakes, the mountains, the sea. Those are, for Nietzsche, I think, those are the thoughts worth thinking. And those are the thoughts this would get us into, I think, precisely a move that you find again in Nietzsche and Heidegger, that there's a parallel in the Asian traditions, where ordinary language is they're all agreed, that kind of gets in the way because it works through concepts and things that don't exist, like opposites and so on. When that goes away, what comes back, the thoughts that come from the world and where I am, those come in poetic language. I mean, very, very obviously, I think, in both Nietzsche and Heidegger and in the Asian tradition, the kind of language that comes up, it's not that Zen has nothing to do with language, but it has nothing to do with ordinary language. What then comes up, and is part and parcel of practice and enlightenment, awareness, awakening, is a different form of language that I don't make up, that comes from the things themselves, as a phenomenologist would say. And I think I found several passages in Pessoa where he talks about the way the images and the metaphors come like the people, that they're not things that he's got to find an image that would catch that thought. No, when he's in the mood, the image comes unbidden itself. Zarathustra has a wonderful passage where he talks about metaphor and the way the language just comes. But of course it's probably coming all the time, but we never notice it because we're full of ordinary language, nonsense language, clutter, stuff that doesn't matter. This hasn't, I hope you haven't thought this was a detour or a diversion, because maybe it was a detour, what I'm coming back to is this, that the falsification that we need in order to cope and in order to live can be gotten around only if we're able to withdraw a bit sometimes. It's really hard. You can't get there straight away, the Buddhists would say too, in the rush hour traffic. But, okay, so you withdraw, and so I spend, I gather, like Nietzsche, a lot of time on his own. And then, of course, the test is, well, how do you handle the rush hour traffic now? I mean, it's all right, very nice to be in a mountaintop monastery. In the Buddhist tradition, if you're doing that, the drive to survive isn't relevant. They make your food for you. You have to work in the garden for it, but you don't have to be working for a living. You don't have to be doing anything for a living for a while. What some people call the instinct for self-preservation is uncoupled, and paradoxically, I want to say that Nietzsche and the Buddhists, and I suspect Pessoa too, are saying it's only when you're able to uncouple that you get the hang of what it is to really live, because you've had the distance, you've had the emptying out, you've cleared the decks, and you're able to experience things as they are. Because you know those many passages in Nietzsche, and there are parallels in Pessoa, where he's saying, you know, we experience the same way as we read a book. We don't read every word on the page. We don't see every leaf on a tree. There's no time. We just have a label, we have a concept, tree. So we spend our lives dealing with labels. We don't actually see a tree. Of course, you don't need to be a Buddhist for this. You just need to be a poet or a painter or someone who draws, and you spend time in front of a tree, several weeks optimally. Well, after the first few hours, my wife tells me I can't draw, but my wife's a painter. The label falls off. You're not seeing a tree. You're seeing something vastly more interesting than a tree, because you're allowing yourself to experience where you actually are, what's actually there, rather than some simplified conceptual fantasy of what's probably there. But of course, Nietzsche says the people that wanted to see, this is in the gay science, you know, were very keen to see every change and so on. You know, he talks about, sort of alludes to I've elaborated the example a little, but hunter-gatherers. I mean, yeah, the sound we just heard, we're hunting or gathering, and the sound we just heard isn't exactly the same as the sound that I just heard yesterday, seconds before my hunting companion was eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. No, but it's close enough that I think I'll get up the nearest tree. The color of these berries isn't exactly the same as the ones I came across yesterday that my gathering companion ate and within hours was dead from poisoning. But they're close enough that I think I will avoid them today. Now, the sounds and the colors, Nietzsche says, the beings that saw carefully, that saw exactly what was going on, of course they didn't survive. They were eaten, they were poisoned, they were mowed down by enemies. There was an evolutionary advantage to not seeing, not experiencing what's really going on, but just some fabrication that will let us survive. And I think that when Pessoa links this notion of becoming everything new at every moment and the effort that takes to experience that way, and the way it allows him to receive and to be the images that come when that realization is there, when you're in that mode of experience, those I think are interestingly connected in both Pessoa and Nietzsche. Sorry, are there any other questions about that? I probably didn't expect all this East Asian stuff, but I can't help it.
As far as understanding following your presentation, you seem to be putting Nietzsche more closer to Schopenhauer's thought. Not that it is your intention, but this idea that Nietzsche, for example, Buddhism, at least the type of Buddhism that you are referring to, that they try to get rid of this I understood as a kind of selfish instinct of self-preservation. This is a very, as far as I know, Schopenhauerian idea, and he applies it to arts as well. For example, when he describes the process of bringing forth of an artwork, as the subject gets rid of the concern with his body and sees things for what they are. And this seems to me, my question would be like an objection. It seems to me to be, Nietzsche does seem to be against this Schopenhauerian idea, at least in some passages. He seems to against Schopenhauer, and he seems to always emphasize the role of instinct everywhere, even in arts. Even the sexual instinct as a fundamental drive that is in the origin of the work of art forms. So.
Thank you for that question, because it's a very good question, and it's a very interesting area. There is between Schopenhauer and Nietzsche, and especially with Buddhism in the background. But no, I mean, surely Nietzsche, I mean, my understanding is that Schopenhauer changed Nietzsche's life when he first, as a student, read Die Welt als Wille und Vorstellung. But then he completely repudiated Schopenhauer. And one way of, more or less completely, one way of putting it would be to say, because Schopenhauer was like an early nihilistic Buddhist who said, it's none of it is worthwhile. What we need is the extinction of all desire and willing and so on. And for Nietzsche, that was just dead wrong. That was absolutely not the way to go. But of course, they sound very close, and in many ways, when Nietzsche talks about compassion, when Schopenhauer talks about Mitleid, a lot of Nietzsche's attacks on Mitleid are against Schopenhauer. Therefore, you'd think against Buddhism, because for Buddhism, insight, wisdom, and compassion are the two big things. You have insight into the interconnectedness of everything, and that gives you compassion, because you're not you, you are related to everything. But I think what happens in later Buddhism is that it turns that passive nihilism, that nihilistic emptiness, hollow emptiness, well, it realizes that actually, get down into it a bit deeper, that's shunyata in the Indian Buddhist term. That's the creative emptiness that is the interrelatedness of everything. It's the emptiness of things, because there aren't any things. Nothing has its essence, its self-nature. Everything is what it is only in relation to something else, but in fact, ultimately, everything else. So what you get then people would say, or people do say to me, well, wait a minute, where's the compassion in Nietzsche if he's against Mitleid? Well, he's against Schopenhauerian Mitleid and Christian pitying, but Zarathustra is full of love. I mean, he's loving on every second page. The most loving person you could ever hope to meet. People say, Nietzsche didn't mean it, he's being ironical. No, he isn't. Zarathustra, that's why Zarathustra is the equivalent to the Bodhisattva in later Buddhism. Realizing the interconnectedness of everything, there can't be a me to be enlightened or a self to be reincarnated. That's all understandable through dynamic interconnectedness of the whole universe through time. So there isn't the I, the self, is an illusion. So I'm sorry if I gave the impression, because the soothsayer, this all is the same, all is worthless, all is nothing. That's precisely what Zarathustra and Nietzsche, that's the Schopenhauer that they're against. That you don't renounce willing, but you will in a full-on way, but not ego will. I mean, this is an argument I'm having at the moment. It's coming out in print very soon in the Journal of Nietzsche Studies, with a